Yeah-ta-ta-ta-ta. Okay, there we go. Checks complete, no issues found. Let's publish this video at 2:45 p.m. and then proceed to post the tweet as well. Alright, there we go. Vancouver Canucks trade talk with Quinn Hughes and the Penguins up on YouTube now. Check it, folks. But aside from the Quinn Hughes trade talk, I wanted to also talk about Kiefer Sherwood, because why not? This is exactly what I've been talking about the past few days, my friends. These trade talks, they don't seem to be going away for any of these guys. Every single weekday, there's a new article, a new radio hit, a new thing linking these Vancouver Canucks guys to any team. But this Michael Russo article on The Athletic is a little bit different. Minnesota Wild Insider says Minnesota could have up to 11 Olympians in Milan, plus Kiefer Sherwood interest and the search for secondary scoring. Russo's latest piece with Joe Smith will be linked in the description below. If you have The Athletic, you could go out there and read this. But one of the big excerpts from this article was cut out and posted on Twitter by Adam Kierszenblad of the Hockey News. Let's go out there and read this specific part of Russo's newest piece. Kierszenblad says Vancouver Canucks Twitter would have blown up if this trade went through. Ironically, the Vancouver Canucks turned down an offer from the Minnesota Wild for Marco Rossi at the draft that would have involved Aatu Raty, the 15th overall pick, and goalie Arturs Silovs. Oh my goodness. There is absolutely no way this trade would have been seen as a good one for the Vancouver Canucks. Ay, Marco Rossi, come on down, but my gosh, Aatu Raty and the 15th overall pick going over to Minnesota, that would have been a disaster. And this is one of these odd times where hindsight actually works in favor of the Vancouver Canucks. You know, you don't want to be a hindsight Harry, but we always go out there and say, man, the Vancouver Canucks made the wrong choice. They signed Demko to a big extension. They signed Lankinen to a big extension. They traded away Silovs. They traded Bo over JT. They kept JT for far too long. They didn't build a contender around Hughes. Hindsight. It's all there for the Vancouver Canucks. You could even say hindsight with the experiments that didn't work. Wow, why'd you go out there and sign Danton Heinen? Why'd you make a trade for Vitaly Kravtsov? These things didn't work. But this is one of the hindsight situations where I think it actually does work out in Vancouver's favor, because Marco Rossi, we all recognize the situation with Marco Rossi back in the summer. The guy needed a deal. The guy was unsigned. The guy was forced to play first-line center for the Wild in 24-25. Not because he was good enough to be there, but because the team was just hurt. And then he subsequently proved that, hey, he actually is a pretty good first-line center. Is he the best in the league? Probably not, but he was still good enough to get 60 points on the year. And then in the playoffs, things didn't really go all too well. And I say that fully knowing that he had scored 3 points in 6 games over there. The guy wasn't given any ice time. He's only 5'9", so it does seem like the Minnesota Wild did not have their perceptions about him checked out properly. They didn't really think that he's a guy that's worth giving the minutes to, especially in playoff games, despite the fact that he was a pretty productive player. So there was always going to be that heightism, I guess, tossed towards Marco Rossi within the Minnesota organization. And it was weird because we had one hand, the coaching staff didn't want to give him any minutes, and it didn't really seem like they trusted him all too much. But then on the other hand, the team wanted to trade him, and it turned out that nobody was really willing to step up and give Minnesota what they wanted, which was a lot. They valued this guy super highly because at the end of the day, I mean, he was a 23-year-old in the playoffs who was at 60 points in 82 games. So that should be valued highly, but it seems like the Wild didn't value him highly internally within the way they like to specifically play hockey. So trade rumors for Marco Rossi were running wild. He ended up getting signed by the Wild anyway, though. He signed a 3-year deal, $5 million AAV, so good for him. But hearing one of the ideas that Minnesota was thinking about that they asked Vancouver for, this absolutely feels yucky to me right here. Raty, the 15th overall pick, and Arturs Silovs for Rossi? Never mind the fact that Arturs Silovs is starting to struggle a little bit in Pittsburgh. He got traded for a 4th-round pick. It was not really that big of a deal. I guess you could say it's a positive return for Vancouver, considering the fact that Artie Party was a 6th-rounder. But you think about the status that he had. He ended up helping Vancouver get past the first round in Nashville in 2024. He helped the Abbotsford Canucks team win the Calder Cup in 2025. You would have hopefully expected more than just a 4th-round pick going over to the Pittsburgh Penguins, but I'll stick by the same assessment that I was making the entire time the Arturs Silovs trade was going down. It's the fact that Arturs Silovs was not good in the National Hockey League in 2024-2025. Yes, he won the playoff series in 23-24, but in this season, Silovs was one of the worst goaltenders in the National Hockey League, and a lot of the problems in his game did not fix themselves out. I think it's fair for Vancouver Canucks fans to have looked at the hindsight of it all and say, wow, Arturs Silovs started out the 25-26 season with a shutout, and he was really good. He was a really good player for the first however many games this is, up until he let in 4 goals in back-to-back games against Minnesota and Toronto. Arturs Silovs has had his faults, but ultimately, there was value there if you acknowledge where he was able to go later on. But all these other assets, man, the 15th overall pick and Aatu Raty, you think the Vancouver Canucks have center problems now? What would have happened if they got rid of Raty and Cootes? Marco Rossi coming into Vancouver and being the second tier underneath Elias Pettersson, or even being the first tier guy above Elias Pettersson, that would have been somewhat of a better center core than what we were seeing right now with David Kampf and all these guys. But at the same time, Aatu Raty, I think I like this guy so much that it's hard to depart with the idea that he can be a Vancouver Canuck long term. I get that the ages are just very similar as well. Like, oh, Rossi is 24. He had 60 points in an NHL year. Aatu Raty is 23. Like, you can definitely say they're so close that Rossi should trump Aatu Raty, but I will also say Raty's been looking a lot better lately, especially with more ice time. If he is able to step up in this big moment where there isn't really a defined second-line center, there's a spot right behind Elias Pettersson, if Raty can step up and fill that role, earn Adam Foote's trust, and become that second-line center that Vancouver needed, we mentioned it yesterday and earlier in today's show, but Aatu Raty was supposed to be a first overall caliber guy when he was draft eligible. He just didn't go that far because he had a bad draft year. A part of me still believes that those skills still exist in this dude, as long as he gets that confidence up and as long as his conversions in the National Hockey League start coming through. Never mind the fact that Braeden Cootes would have been involved in it too, or at least the 15th overall pick that was used to select him. Cootes is at 23 points in 17 WHL games. He's at 80 points on the projection, and that's all coming off of a super hot stint. He didn't really start the year out all too hot in Seattle, but he's really put the cart in front of the horse in a good way, considering the production he has gotten afterwards. So long-term, Petey, Raty, Cootes in some sort of an order like that looks awesome. I'd say it looks better than just Petey and Rossi. Even though Rossi is good, even though I'd say that Rossi has a lot of potential, even though he is young. At the end of the day, this trade would have broken Canucks Twitter if it went down, sacrificing all of the future in the world for a guy who is admittedly, heading towards his middle 20s in terms of age. Now Vancouver is really trying to hammer down that young player philosophy. And it seems like quantity could possibly overtake the quality of one Marco Rossi, even though Rossi is really good. If Raty ends up becoming a little bit more valuable than Rossi over the long term, that would be the best case scenario. Add in Braeden Cootes and you're golden, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this update that Vancouver rejected a Marco Rossi trade from Minnesota that would have involved Aatu Raty, the 15th overall pick, and Arturs Silovs? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.